All right, I'd like to ask a question. Bekah, what impact do you think you can have on public attitudes and opinions if you are chosen as Mrs. Ohio?
If I'm chosen as Mrs. Ohio, I am just a woman of a different culture and heritage that came over to this country. We had nothing but the clothes on our backs, and we had help from strangers. My parents didn't have a vehicle, so strangers would drive my parents to interviews so that they could get jobs. And we were housed with people who we didn't know. And so I feel that I am a symbol of success, being able to come to America and all these people helping us out. I was able to get a full ride to the Ohio State University, skip a year of college, and become a dentist a year early. So I feel that being married and having 3 kids and being a woman of color, that I'm a symbol of hope to other women. But not only that, but I'm forming these organizations to help women to achieve their American dream. I'm going into our public schools. I'm teaching about self-confidence, how to be a public speaker. And so with the crown, I would represent somebody of a diverse background as a symbol of hope that we all can live out our own American dream.
Edwinna?
You need to unmute yourself, Edwinna.
Okay. Bekah, how did you empower a rural Honduran girl?
I've gone on many missions trips and mostly to Honduras. And what we do is we go into rural areas and we do dentistry. We have a folding chair and a flashlight and a pair of forceps. And there was a Honduran girl who was shadowing me, and she said she was kind of interested in dentistry. So I actually taught her how to give anesthetic, and she gave it to the patient. And on the last day, she had been watching me take out teeth. And so I actually allowed her, under my supervision, to take a tooth out. And when she did that, that was her aha moment. I'm happy to tell you guys that she is now a dentist. She's graduated and practicing. So empowerment is empowering another woman to reach her goals and her dreams. And now she can provide the dental work that's needed in those rural areas. And that's what makes me very excited, is to be able to help another woman do what she wants to do.
Okay.
Bekah, good morning and welcome. As we've learned about you from your resume, we find that you were the founder and president of SWHO, and that you are motivated by setting a good role model, by being a good role model for your boys, as well as building self-confidence in children and girls and women. Could you please explain how this organization, SWHO, works, what it is, and how it complements what motivates you?
So I formed the organization Strong Women Helping Others a few years ago. When my kids were age 3, I would take them out to volunteer, and I would always post a picture on social media. And people would always say, tell me when you go next, because I'm really interested. So I just came up with the idea, let's form this organization. I go to the gym every day. And so 75 women of the gym are in my organization. And what I do is every month I set up volunteer opportunities. And a lot of times women are like, well, we have kids, it's hard for us to volunteer. I say, bring your kids along so that they can volunteer and they can have this love of volunteering at a young age. We go to places such as Hands Against Hunger, where we package food to go to areas of devastation around the world and also here in the United States. And kids always want to help. They just need a chance to help. But not only that, we learned that 30,000 kids die a day from starvation. And sometimes when you have that knowledge, it empowers you to want to volunteer. And then the following months, we'll do Habitat for Humanity, where we'll build homes, or we'll go to a women's center where we sort through clothes for families in need. So I think just bringing awareness to women to be that we can be the helping hands to help others. And I'm passionate about it because so many people help my family. And I believe that we are not giving a handout to people. We're giving people a hand up in life, like I was given. And so I hope that my organization is contagious and it inspires other people to go out and just volunteer.
Okay, so that takes care of round 1. Now we'll go back on to round 2. We'll get started once again. Cathy?
Yes, thank you. Bekah, how old were you when you arrived in the U.S., and what advice would you give to other children of that age, of that same age, who come to the United States for the first time?
So I have a brother and sister. They were 2 years old, and my brother was 6 months old. And I was actually born here on American soil. And I just, from everything that my parents told me when I was growing up, and we lived in low-income housing, and I know that, you know, you have strangers who don't know you helping. And I always tell the women in my organization, you might not know the impact that you have on people, but I'm an example of somebody who broke that cycle of poverty through the help of others. And that if we take the time to care for another person, I think that we can really change somebody's life, whether we will ever meet them or not. And so I hope to be that person to say that, you know, your help has brought me to where I'm at. And now potentially I could go to Mrs. America and go for that crown.
Okay, Edwinna?
You need to unmute.
What is the No Veteran Left Behind program?
This is my favorite volunteer program. I love that God has given me a gift of dentistry and to be able to help people. I've been doing this program for 2 decades now. And what it is there are veterans out there who cannot have access to dental care. They don't have insurance and they can't afford it. I had a veteran come in who served in the Vietnam War, and he had 14 rotted teeth. And I was able to extract all of his teeth, and then I made him a denture. The day that I sat his denture in his mouth, he looked in the mirror and he cried and he smiled and he said, "Thank you for changing my life and giving my smile back." I said, "No, thank you, sir, for coming over to a country of strangers you didn't know, fighting for freedom in a country for the idea of freedom." So it was just a pleasure to be able to give back to somebody who's given so much to our country and other countries.
Okay, and Kay?
Bekah, congratulations for starting this journey. As you know, in this country, beauty pageants are not as popular as they used to be, and there's some people that feel they're even inappropriate. But with that said, you must have had some objective in deciding to go on this journey, and we'd like to hear about why. What was your objective? What did you want to accomplish? And if you should win, how would you leverage your notoriety to meet some of the other objectives in your life, of which there are many?
Last year, I was approached by my dental assistant who said to me, "You should be in a pageant." And I was like, "Say what?" At this stage in life, I thought it was for girls who were 26 and under. But she told me, "No, it's for the married woman." And I think that you would do really well because your heart is to serve others. And I didn't know anything about it. I did research. And I found out that pageantry is about a woman who is a leader. A leader, according to John Maxwell, who is a leadership coach, is somebody who puts others before themselves and serves people. And when I saw that it was about a woman who empowers other women, who is a woman of excellence, I felt that God has given me a good life and that I would be an example, especially to anyone who comes to this country, who lives in this country, who is struggling, that you, by other people helping you and pouring into you, you can become a success story. You can use the resources that America has and become who you want to be. And so I decided that, you know, through things that I do is I always want to better people. I always want to build confidence in people. And so it's something that I'm very passionate about, but I knew nothing about pageantry. And it was just such a perfect fit for me after she told me that I should be in a pageant. She did die a month before my pageant, which was very tragic. So for that reason, I do want to win the crown for her, because for another woman to believe in you that much is just something that I feel passionate about, is to win the crown for her, but also for other women who feel that they're struggling in life, that there's other women who will come alongside them and help. And I hope to be that symbol of hope.
Okay, thank you. Now we're on to round 3. We'll start off with, let's see, Cathy again.
Hey, thank you. Bekah, it's been very interesting hearing all about your life. I'm still very curious about whether you grew up speaking Vietnamese in the home and whether you are bilingual now. Do you still speak any Vietnamese? And what are the advantages of being multilingual?
Dạ, chào cô. Bích Ngọc biết nói tiếng Việt, cảm ơn. Yes, so when I was growing up, my parents had us speak Vietnamese in the home, and we could speak English when we were outside the home because they felt that it was very important to just preserve our culture and our heritage. And I have spoken and been an MC at Vietnamese New Year events every year during the Lunar New Year. And I also go to the State House and I will do a speech about the Vietnamese freedom flag on Vietnamese Freedom Flag Day, which is April 29th. And so I think that it's important to be bilingual. I also have patients that come in who speak Vietnamese but don't know English very well, so I have to speak in Vietnamese and say, "Go run now," and ask them in Vietnamese, which tooth hurts? And so I think that it's great to be bilingual, and I also am teaching my kids to speak Vietnamese also.
Okay, thank you. Edwinna.
What was your experience at Havasupai Falls?
I actually have not been to Havasupai Falls, but we did win this lottery. It is a place in the Grand Canyon in an Indian reservation. And on a certain date, over 1 million people around the world try to win a spot. And this year I won a spot, and our trip is actually mid-July. And I'm very excited because it is a 12-mile hike, and it takes 4 to 6 hours. And you are carrying 50 pounds of equipment, your camping, your tent, your food, and your water. I know that this is not glamping, this is not air conditioned, this is real camping where you have your own food, you pitch your own tent. But the place is called Heaven on Earth because there's blue and turquoise waterfalls, and it's taken a lot of training for me and my best friend to be able to go on this trip. So we've been doing a lot of hill running, a lot of weights on our back to just practice for this. And we're just looking forward to doing this once in a lifetime dream of ours, and we'll check it off our bucket list.
Okay, and Kay Colson, wrap it up with the final question.
Becca, I have friends who have sons, just as you do, multiple sons and no daughters, just as you do. And many times I've heard them say that they feel like sometimes they're dropped off at the wrong dorm and they're not quite sure how to relate. What has been your experience in learning from raising boys, and how do you hope to change their perspective in life from perhaps more traditional perspectives that are taught in the past?
I actually love being a mom of 3 boys. We go hiking and camping and fishing, and sometimes they're like, "Mom, can you hold this baby snake for me?" And I really don't want to, but I do anyways. Or, "Can you hook this worm?" And I'm like, "All right." So I've learned to love and appreciate those things, and their love language is wrestling, so I'm on the ground wrestling with them. But you know, I've taught my kids to go out in the community and serve. And actually, my son, for his 12th birthday, I asked him what he wanted to do, and he said, "Mommy, I want to go to Vietnam and serve." And so we were supposed to go to a deaf school and help. And that to me was the greatest moment, that my son has a heart of compassion for others. Other 12-year-olds might want to do other things, but he wanted to go out and help somebody. So I feel that it's my job to raise a future generation of men who have integrity and who will serve others, and to not worry about the stereotypes of what anybody says, to know who they are, who God has made them to be, and we're raising them to be those strong men.
Okay, so that wraps up the interview portion of the Mrs. Ohio pageant. And now we are going back to Dogwood Toastmasters meeting of the day.
Thank you.
Okay, let's stop the recording.